Welcome to the Leading Conversations podcast, sponsored by the Excel Leadership Network. On each episode, JD Pairing will have conversations with church planting pastors and leaders from around the country. You can learn more about how to connect with Excel at the end of this podcast. Let's join JD now and listen in on this leading conversation.
Well, I'm very happy today to have our guest on the Excel Leadership Podcast, the strong and wonderful Stefen Fussle from Maui, Hawaii. Stefen, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you, JD, for having me.
Hey, I want to start out with a question I get asked about you a lot of times. What's his name? What's his name now? I knew you as Stefen Fussle, and now your name keeps changing. I like to call you Steverino because that could be a nickname. But tell us about your name. What is it?
Well, it's Stefen Fussle, and the reason I did that is because, here in Hawaii, people are big on pronouncing names, Hawaiian names correctly, or personal names. It's a cultural thing. They really want to do it correct. That represents your culture. So I told them, no, my last name was Fussle, right, and not Fussle. And they loved that. They wanted me to go by that. And so, hey, I'm German roots, so I wanted to celebrate that and start just pronouncing it right. My parents changed it to make it more easy to say in the States when they immigrated over. So I've been, since Hawaii, I've been using Fussle. And then, I went through a big transition in my life 7 years ago, and I was like, well, what the heck? I did the last name right. Why don't we do the first name right too in the German pronunciation? So it's Stefen or Stefan in German. So, but yeah, that's where the Steven moves to Stefen. But I just don't get it. The English language, the PH never is spelled with a V sound. So I don't know why people read a PH and then Stefan and say Steven. I don't get it, but that's just me.
Well, can I still call you Steverino?
You can call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner or an Excel event.
Well, I want to get into what happened 7 years ago, but let's begin with, tell us, how did you come to Christ? How did you commit your life to Jesus?
Well, I was about ready to head out to Purdue University's aviation program. And I was looking through a surfer magazine and saw on the back of it an ad that said, "Serve God and Surf, YWAM Maui, Hawaii, Youth of the Mission, University of the Nations." And I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Why don't I just go surf for a year before I go to school? I could totally, manipulate my parents to get me involved in this thing, and they'll pay for it because, obviously they want me to find God, but, I'm going to be having fun surfing and, meeting Hawaiian babes out there. And so that was the plan. And so I went to Maui, Hawaii, got around a bunch of on fire for God, young people. And God started tackling me little by little. And then it wasn't until our DTS that we went to China, where I was confronted about my faith. And they were telling me they didn't believe I was a Christian. And they were right. And the miracle was that God shut my mouth long enough for me to hear the truth. And once I realized they were telling the truth, I was able to speak and, basically admitted I didn't trust God. And they quoted me a bunch of truth from God's word about, how God loves me and wants to give me a future and a hope and the desires of my heart. And so I believed them and cursed out the devil and surrendered my life to Christ right there in China. Came back and got baptized in Paia Bay here in Maui. And that was the beginning of my faith journey. And right there, people were saying, "Oh, Stefen, you're called to ministry." And I was like, "No, run away." So I went back to my hometown, tried my old way of life, and it was not satisfying. Now I tasted God and I couldn't go back. And a number of things happened that led to me, accepting that call and obeying God in that. So,
wow, that's an amazing story. What is DTS? You said something happened.
The Discipleship Training School. It's actually where YWAM, where for your actual mission you go to a country and you serve, and you build a hospital, you build wells or homes, or you serve the community, teach English, whatever you can do. But the goal is to win people to Christ, evangelism. But it just gives, young people a taste for missions in other countries. So
and on
that's
that
what
trip,
that is.
on that trip, you came to Christ. That's cool.
And on that, instead of me winning people to Christ, I came to Christ. Yeah, we did smuggle Bibles in. That was pretty fun. So,
well, how did you get to Southern California?
Well, that's after I'd run from my call, and God sent a giant whale to swallow me whole in the form of a crazy woman. I decided I was going to stop doing things my way, and decided that God's call in my life was for real, and that I needed to take it seriously. I needed to go all in or nothing. And so I decided to go all in. And that's when I started looking to just forego the admission to the aviation program at Purdue, and started looking into Christian universities, and found Vanguard University of Southern California, and just was real excited about that. Applied, got accepted, and met my wife first day of school, and the rest is history.
Well, speaking of that history, you became a youth pastor for quite a while, right?
Yep, right after graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies, Pastoral Leadership, like a religion major, and I got a job at the Crossing Church with Tim Selleck. I was an intern because I was applying for, the youth position that had opened up, and I thought I would just automatically get it because of, my degree, right? But Tim was like, "Yeah, your degree counts for nothing. What experience do you have?" And so I was instead offered an internship, a paid internship, and then that turned into a full-time junior high youth position. Then that turned into a full-time junior high, high school, and young adults ministry position, where I was pastoring there close to over 7 years of my time there at the Crossing, and some just awesome leadership development, and cutting my teeth under Tim. It was just incredible.
I'm sure that it was, working with Tim. What caused you to look into church planting?
Well, I was in the middle of just serving, and we took a youth ministry there that was a struggling 35. The previous youth pastor had left, in a bad way, took a bunch of kids with him and leaders, and it was a wreck. So when we had built it up to 200 plus students and 80 leaders and volunteers and 2 staff underneath me, just there began to feel and grow inside of me this kind of discontent where I wanted more. And so I just started seeking God. And this was during a missions trip in Africa with the Crossing that I just kind of sensed, in 2008. And then began to pray more about it. I went and fasted and prayed and went to a beach day, and I just heard God put the words in my heart, church planting. And I was like, what the heck, church planting? So I began to, research it, read all the top books on it. Just started diving in full blast, and told my wife about it. And she was like, whoa, we need to pray about this. Then I was able to run into John Blue. He's an ex-NHL hockey goalie, professional hockey goalie. And he's also a church planter. And I met with him and shared my heart. And he's like, have you shared this with Tim yet? And I was like, nope. He's like, well, you should. You don't want to hide this from him for too long. And by the way, this is going to happen a lot faster than you think. So get ready. And I was like, whoa. So I told my senior pastor, and sure enough, it happened a lot quicker than I thought. In a good way, we looked for organizations, church planting organizations, to go through assessments. That was Tim's idea. So I went and researched it, found a bunch of different organizations, and then landed with Excel. And so that is how we found the assessment center. We went through the assessment pretty rigorous with my wife. And this was back in the day when we did it in Placerville. It was like a 4-day deal. So a little bit longer than I think the newer ones, but it was just incredible time learning about ourselves, learning about, church planting more, and just being around a bunch of people who I felt immediately a connection with, because church planners, it takes a special breed. And so we got a green light from the assessment, and then that was it. We got the blessing from our senior pastor, Tim, at the crossing, and sent it off with his blessing. And we went, and we're looking for places to go and plant. And
Why Maui?
Well, we fasted and prayed to seek God on where the location. I was open to my hometown in Indiana. I was like, please, God, don't send me there, because I didn't have a whole lot of love for my hometown. Now I have much more respect for it. And then also I was considering Switzerland, because I'm a Swiss citizen and American citizen. And then I was like, well, why not the place I love, that I want to be, that I want to spend the rest of my life, And so I came out here, walked the streets, fasted and prayed, and sought God. And then, after, I did police ride-alongs, I did door-to-door knocks, the Rick Warren, hey, do you go to church? If not, why? That type of thing. I think I visited 400 homes in that. But anyway, I just was seeking God. I heard him speak, because I was like, God, if it's not Hawaii, please tell me, because this place scares me. This is difficult ground. And but he spoke. I got the confirmation. And so in 2009, we moved out to Hawaii. We worked with the people, rubbed elbows, got a job at like Lowe's, and a wife got a job at the university here. And then 2010 Easter, we did our preview services, and we launched at Easter, 2010.
Yeah, I remember you guys working 2-3 jobs, just getting there, working hard. You had a pretty good start, and then get to what happened 7 years ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, church planning is is rigorous, and you have to take care of your soul, and you have to. One of our values at our church is we stole this, I think, from Greg Rochelle or Andy Stanley, one of those guys, but it's called staying fit for the fight. And you're constantly being depleted as a pastor, constantly pouring into people and loving on people and walking with them through their darkest moments. And, I'd been going full time at that point for over 8 years without a sabbatical. And, Wayne Cadero was talking about seasons and a life of a pastor, where you sprint and where you run and where you walk. And so I had slotted out a 2-month period of time where I was going to sprint, and I didn't have a whole lot of time for quiet time, rest, Sabbath. The sabbatical was out of the picture. We were doing a capital campaign and a remodeling of our facility, and 15-hour days, 16, 17, 18-hour days, just completely exhausted and depleted and burning out. And I have a weak spot, a blind spot, so to speak. And that is, well, now it's not a blind spot anymore. But there's your known strengths and your known weaknesses at the top of the quadrant. And then at the bottom is your known, top is like, I believe, known strengths and unknown strengths. And then the bottom is known weaknesses and unknown weaknesses. And your blind spot is your unknown weakness. Mine was the bully. Growing up with abuse and different things going on in my life, I had a trigger for the bully. And there's all kinds of bullies out in Hawaii. There's a lot of pharmaceutical / pesticide developers, like Monsanto is big out here. And one of the corporations out here would spray Roundup or glyphosate all over the sugarcane to make it brown and dry so they could burn it. It's like dipping a cigarette in Roundup. You see commercials all the time saying, hey, if you've exposed to Roundup, you have cancer, you have a chance at a class action lawsuit. So they would spray this stuff, and I would have nosebleeds right next to us, and then they would burn it, and our whole house would fill with smoke at 3 a.m, several times a week. And one night I just snapped, and I grabbed a sledgehammer and went and attacked a bunch of infrastructure from HCNS, and blew up a couple of big, massive water pumps the size of VW buses. And in that explosion, I burned 50% of my body. And I was hospitalized. Had to fight for my life, second and third degree burns, and got out, lawyered up. I wanted to run from this, but I had awesome people around me like JD and Tim Selleck and John Blue, and walked me through this dark moment. And they convinced me that facing this and fighting this was the right way to do it instead of running away. And so that's what I did. I got a good Jewish lawyer, faced this. I was facing mandatory prison time up to 20 years with over $500,000 in damages. Miracle after miracle happened to where I didn't get charged with nearly as many felonies I should have. And that was maybe the detective had a heart for me. But then when I went before the judge, I think the Holy Spirit hijacked the prosecutor, because she just, basically said, Stefen's a good man. He turned himself in, doesn't have a criminal history. And, he's served the poor in our community, got all the support of these pastors around here with him. And if anybody deserves a chance, this guy does. And that judge was after me. I mean, he wanted to take me out. And it was like God's twisting his arm to give me mercy. And instead of walking into that jail cell with cuffs, I walked out the front door, and I was just in shock, complete shock. And with that, along with that, I had been in a 1.5 year restoration process with Excel, where I was assigned an on-island pastor to walk me through this, Christian psychologist to walk me through that blind spot of anger and abuse, and then just a number of things, books, school, and also going through a reassessment with Excel. And then after that long, rigorous process, I was reinstated as the lead at the Awakening again here in Hawaii. And
let me just interrupt here a second,
yeah.
Stefen, to say that I got to see you handle all of that stuff, and from your just when you came out of your coma and stuff, and you called me and you confessed and you said, I got to do the right thing. And you just took every step we asked you to take. And some of them were really difficult. I know your lawyer was just saying, hey, just get out of Dodge. They'll never know. But you faced everything head on. And I just want to commend you for, paying the price, being honest, just laying it all out and say, okay, God, I trust you. There were days when we thought you were going to prison, and many days. So we were just waiting on that. But and God came through in a big way. But I also just want to make sure that you've been a great example to a lot of us about, okay, how to face it when you mess up. So,
right.
So you went through everything. You went through the Discovery Center again. You were reinstated. And how's it gone since then?
Wow. I tell you what, again, if it hadn't been for Excel, we wouldn't be here. Multiple occasions, the church would have died. We went through multiple ups and downs, and, just God just started blessing us because of our faithfulness and our persistence. And, I keep on quoting, I think it's Andy Stanley, young people vastly overestimate what they can do in a short period of time, but also vastly underestimate what God can do in a long period of time, just being faithful. And so we've seen us moving from a dingy calf with, gum all over the tables and scorpions and all kinds of other, just kids, crayon drawings all over the walls, to a, multi-million-dollar facility now where we have 360 degrees views almost of the outdoor, of the ocean, islands, and it's a nice selling point for tourists to come, and but a lot of local people like that outdoor environment, and so we're on the 3rd floor of a really nice building with an open air view of the island. So the attendance is is growing. People are getting saved, and we got a number of really key leaders in development. And so it's, super exciting, and things are going really well. And there was a number of times there where it wasn't, it was hard. But God just kept on telling us, as long as you have dollars coming in, as long as you have people come in, then you stay open. And we did. So.
Well, that's wonderful. You're the resilient guy. I know you're working on a book on being on fire for God with all the burns and stuff.
Yes.
Hey, just one last question. Give us your best. Well, maybe two questions. Talk about the importance of resilience, and then anything you want to say to us as leaders that we can end with. Just your source of encouragement.
Yeah, I guess people shy away from places or spaces where that they are grit um, machines, grit machines. Like, so Maui, for example, is kind of like a giant washing machine that you're going to get thrown into, and it is going to test you and your resilience. And in a way that there's a lot of places that don't test that as much. But you'd ask any church planner, and they'll say, "Well, mine's the worst washing machine of grit, right?" But out here, this island it does us a favor, and it tests us because it's hard out here. And if you hold on, it can be very rewarding. And if you don't, you'll just get chewed up and spit out. And so God's used this place to develop in me a fight, a grit that just says, I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna quit, unless God tells me so. And I just, that has to do with a willingness to embrace places and spaces that will test that grit. Right. What's his name? Not Andy Stanley, but what's Francis Chan? Yeah, he said, put yourself in a position that if you're not rescued by God, you are totally screwed. And then that's how you can tell, you're living by faith. And that's what, in a sense, it is out here. And I guess just embracing the suck, embracing the washing machine, and finding places where that's tested and developed, and not just going to the easy route. The easy route is not always it's not always the most beneficial or in the plan for God has for us. So I guess, just embracing those, relationships where you get some grit, embracing those, people who are hard to reach, and that'll grow your grit, picking the harder challenge out of the two options. That's the key. So.
Well, good. Thank you for that. Embrace the suck. That's
Yeah.
That's the message. Hey, before we go here, I mean, I know 7 years ago you got burned half your body. You survived. You came through that. How's your health now?
Well, with God's help, I'm overcoming a leukemia diagnosis that I just received over 2 months ago. And, when, we found out this information, my wife and I had a good cry, but then we buckled down. We told ourselves, hey, we've been here before. We faced giants where life and death was on the line. And God has given us the tools to carry this. And so we saw this as a blessing wrapped in a lot of pain. And we said, we're going to fight. We're going to rely on God. We're going to trust him. And, those battles for fighting fear in the middle of the night and anxiety, I used those tools that I learned from the fire for this new fire. And I got to tell you, I haven't missed a night of rest since the diagnosis. And I just trust God. I know he's in control. This is something that I don't have any control over. And so yeah, we're facing it. I got 3 weeks so far of normal white blood cell counts. So we're on a pathway to the first step of remission in 4 levels, and we'll find out more information as we go. But I have a form of leukemia that has, if you catch it on time and you're responsive to the medication, you have a good chance of living a full life. But you're still facing a deadly disease, and you're in God's hand. So that's what's going on now. And, the book that I'm working on is, Affliction by Fire or something like that, or Fire by Affliction. And it's basically, how do we take life's trials and come out stronger and better? So I'm applying these fires that I've had to go through in my life, numerous ones. Some of them I haven't talked about, but how do we lean into the pain? How do we lean into the suffering and come out stronger? And so, and God's got this. He's in control.
Well, thank you, Stefen. Thanks for your example. Thanks for hanging in there, not quitting, for your resilience, and for being on fire for Jesus. So thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining the Leading Conversations podcast. We hope that you found it both helpful and encouraging. At Excel Leadership Network, our focus is on the church planter rather than the church. If you'd like to find out more about us, visit our webpage at excelnetwork.org. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. See you next time with another Leading Conversation.